Hi, I'm Jeff Mucklin, and this is Science at Home, which is brought to you by the Nurture Nature Center. Thanksgiving is here, and for me, that means turkey and stuffing and reconnecting with family. In this video, let's explore the science of Thanksgiving. If your Thanksgiving dinner includes a turkey, then you will want to make sure that the internal temperature reaches 165 degrees Fahrenheit. According to the FDA, all pathogens that could be in your turkey should be destroyed by cooking the meat to at least a temperature of 165 degrees. The turkey popper. This is a small red button inside a white piece of plastic that many turkeys actually come with. The button is designed to pop when the temperature inside the turkey reaches 180 to 185 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a bit too high, and if you rely on a pop timer like this, you might end up overcooking your turkey. But it does work pretty well, and they're remarkably simple. Now, I actually took apart a turkey popper so I could show you what was inside of it. But you shouldn't do that at home because there's actually a substance inside these poppers that is toxic. But inside the popper, we can see that there is a spring. Here's the actual popper part, which can now fall out because it's no longer connected. But if we pull out this spring, we can see that there's a little blob of metal at the end of the spring. And that blob of metal is encasing the spring, and it's a spring that's compressed. So as long as that blob of metal stays on this compressed spring, then the button will stay inside the pop. This is a special low melting point metal called Wood's metal. It's solid at room temperature, but it begins to melt at around 158 degrees Fahrenheit. When the metal melts, the spring is released and the button pops. Mercury, which I have a little bit of in this glass vial here, mercury is an element, and it is the only metal that is liquid at room temperature. As you can see here, this little bead of mercury is a liquid. Gallium is another metallic element with a melting temperature just a little bit higher than a comfortable room temperature. It melts and liquefies at 85 degrees, around the same temperature that milk chocolate will melt, which means it will actually melt from the heat of your hand, which I have some right here. I have some gallium in its liquid state heated by the palm of my hand. Unlike mercury or even Wood's metal, it's non-toxic, so it's safe to handle even without protection like gloves. Incidentally, tungsten, which is this element right here, has the highest melting point of any element. It will liquefy at 6,177 degrees. So a turkey that was using a tungsten popper would be very well done. After eating that perfectly prepared turkey and stuffing, mashed potatoes, cranberry sauce, and corn, oh, and pie, don't forget the pie. After eating all of that, you might start to feel very sleepy. There is a popular theory that the reason we feel sleepy after Thanksgiving dinner is because turkey contains an amino acid called tryptophan. It is true that turkey is rich in tryptophan, which is an important nutrient that's actually good for you. And it's true that some people take tryptophan supplements to help them get a good night's sleep. But you would have to eat 20 servings of turkey to ingest the same amount of tryptophan found in one supplement. Also, turkey is not the only food that has large amounts of tryptophan. Milk and tuna have even higher levels of tryptophan per serving than turkey, and yet no one ever seems to talk about getting sleepy after eating a tuna casserole. And this is because even in these foods, there isn't enough tryptophan to have a significant effect on the body. The real reason why you might get tired has more to do with the amount of food you might eat for your Thanksgiving feast than how much tryptophan was in your bird. Eating a large amount of food in one sitting causes blood to be diverted to the intestines, which causes us to feel tired regardless of what we ate. If you eat a lot of foods high in carbs, like potatoes, corn, and pie, you will experience a spike in blood sugar and eventually a crash about an hour later. Finally, Thanksgiving is a very busy day for most people, and after the meal is done, it might be your first opportunity to really relax and catch your breath. All of these factors combined lead many people to feel like it's time to hibernate after their feasting is done. This year will be the 95th anniversary of the first Macy's Thanksgiving Parade in New York City. One of the big attractions every year are the enormous balloons. The longest balloon this year is 72 feet long. The highest is 62 feet high, and the widest is 37 feet wide. The larger balloons require 300,000 to 700,000 cubic feet of helium gas to make them float, and the entire fleet of balloons uses over $500,000 worth of helium gas. Helium is a gas that is actually quite rare and valuable. Helium has the lowest boiling point of any element, and its largest use is as a coolant. It's also used in welding, and one of its minor uses actually is as a lifting gas in balloons and airships. Helium gas is lighter than the gases that make up regular air, like nitrogen and oxygen. So a balloon filled with it is going to be lighter and less dense than the air around it, and so it will float. The Macy's balloons are filled with so much helium gas that 90 people are needed to safely hold down the largest balloons. So I've set up an interesting experiment that shows that helium is less dense than air. I have a helium-filled balloon here in the car. I've taped it on a string to the floor of the car. It's this one right here. And then I've got a second balloon that's taped to the ceiling. Notice it's drooping down. That's because it's full of regular air. I just blew it up with my own breath. So the air in that second balloon is as dense as the rest of the air in the car, slightly more dense because it's under pressure being inside of a balloon, and the balloon adds a little bit of weight too. But the other balloon filled with helium is less dense than the rest of the air in the car, and that's why it's floating. Now, I'm going to accelerate with my car. I'm going to accelerate through this parking lot in this direction, the windows are up, so no wind will be acting on the balloons. The only forces that will be acting on them will have to do with their own mass. Were you surprised? The balloons behaved perhaps differently than you might have guessed. The balloon filled with regular air, this one here, moved towards the back of the car when I accelerated, as you might have guessed. But the balloon with helium moved forward as I accelerated. Remember that everything in the car felt that acceleration. I felt the acceleration. I was pushed back into my seat. The balloons felt it. The air in the car also felt that acceleration. When I accelerated forward, the air in the car, all of the air, not just the air in the balloons, moved towards the back of the car. The air at the back of the car became a little bit denser, and the air at the front of the car became a little bit less dense. And the balloon was actually moving forward towards the less dense air at the front of the car. Thanksgiving is definitely a day when we consume a lot of resources. Lots of food, lots of fuel for traveling, lots of gas or electricity to cook all that food. Despite all of this consumption, energy use actually goes down on Thanksgiving. Why? Because we're together. If you're hosting a Thanksgiving get-together, your energy use in your house will go up a little bit. But your guests' energy use at their homes are actually going to go down because they're not there. They're not cooking a meal in their home. They're not using lights and so on. By coming together, we actually reduce our environmental footprint, at least for one day. And that's something we can all be thankful for. Thanks for watching.